Hello beautiful people and welcome back to Angelic Embrace, where we document and narrate the glorious and life-changing near-death experiences from people all over the world. So sit back, relax, know that you are loved, and let's get into today's near-death experience story. Consider subscribing and watching to the end to find out what happens. I tried to reach the nurse via phone to let her know that I wasn't feeling well. She covered my face with a mask and urged me to breathe, but I could only take a few breaths before I passed out. She told me to breathe. I was aware that I was still in my body, but I could hear what was going on in the surrounding area. After checking my pulse, which I could at this point, the nurse contacted the anesthesiologist as well as the obstetrician and gynecologist. Someone aimed a bright light in my direction. I was completely immobilized. I was aware of my heart racing, and suddenly it stopped. Then, I felt a brilliant white light envelop me, and I began to float in the air above my body. I did not experience any discomfort, and in light of everything else I was going through, it was such a relief that I forgot about going anyplace else. I simply desired to hang there weightless for all of eternity. The feelings that encompassed me were unlike anything else I have ever felt in my life on this planet. It was as if love had been amplified many times over, making everything seem calm and safe. I noticed several folks I didn't recognize. The first person I saw was a woman with black hair who was wearing a bun and a long brown outfit that looked to be from the 1800s. Because I had already expressed my desire to return at that point, she assured me that she would accompany me. I beseech you, Lord, to grant me permission to return home and tend to my newborn daughter. It's possible that she needs me right now. I was suddenly forcibly yanked back into my body, and I immediately began to feel agony and pressure over my entire body. I regained the ability to feel. My chest was tightening and my heart was pounding. I inhaled through the mask that was still covering both my lips and nose before taking another breath. I opened both of my eyes and made a feeble attempt to see at the overhead mirror that had been positioned for the purpose of viewing the delivery. When I glanced in the mirror, I noticed that my face was pale and gray. My lips had developed a discoloration. The nurse kept her eyes on my fingers the whole time. I had a severe case of anxiety. My chest was covered with cables and patches at the time. Nobody around seemed to recognize you. When this whole thing started, they had already driven my spouse away a long time ago. I had the impression that I was all alone myself and that there was no one I could talk to about my concerns about where my kid was. Is she all right? In any case, I inquired about it, and the nurse said that, due to the manner in which I was bleeding, I had reversed the umbilical cord bleeding and had sucked part of it backwards to me, instead of the baby. She claimed this because of the way the baby was sucking on the umbilical cord. Do you think the infant would be all right with that? Throughout her childhood, she had an outward belly button rather than an innie, but I was never given any reason to believe that this was a cause for concern on anyone's part. I lay in recovery for a couple of hours and continued to bleed a little bit more throughout that time. After all was said and done, I was taken to a room where I was left to recuperate by myself. I was in a lot of pain, but it made me happy to finally meet my new daughter, Laura, and spend some quality time with her thereafter. The following day, I delivered the remaining portion of the placenta into the toilet and presented it to the nurse. As soon as she saw it, she took steps to dispose of the evidence. She had to work for a while to get it drained out since it was the size of an adult's liver, but she did it. A few months later, when it was time for me to view the medical reports, I went back to the hospital. It just said that I had substantial blood loss. There were no traces of all the gear that was there when I woke up. I never had another kid or utilized that doctor for anything else, so I never went back to that hospital, and I also never went back there. Both of my children, Mark, who is 23 years old, and Laura, who is 20 years old, are doing well and are healthy at this point in their lives. Despite this, I spent the following 4 years seeking treatment for my anxiety episodes and attending therapy to better comprehend the things I had been through and the things I had learned. After developing an allergy, I was unable to eat a number of foods that I had previously enjoyed, including chicken, dairy products, cauliflower, and other favorites. Nevertheless, I became accustomed to eating a variety of things that I had either never tried before or had never enjoyed, such as sushi, tofu, and other soy-based items. Here is another account of a close brush with mortality. I was in the 16th year of my life. I remember making my way to the car, but I can't for the life of me recollect getting inside. The accident took place as we were traveling and we were approximately 10 minutes away from our destination when it happened. Suddenly, there was white light, sound, a low hum, and rushing, like the sound of wind. This happened much more rapidly than I would have imagined from reading other people's descriptions of tunnels, but that does describe what I saw. Then, complete blackness, but not in the sense of a darkness that makes it impossible for the eyes to see. After all, we don't need our eyes here. The void of potential, absence of constraint, or perfect completeness is what we mean when we talk about darkness, since in this state there is no requirement to perceive anything. I now realize that everything is going to be okay, and that this experience is going to be far more genuine, beautiful, sensual, and loving than the material world that I had previously considered to be life.
This is the point at which I mentally differentiate myself from what is referred to as the natural completeness. I am aware that it is irrelevant whether or not I return to my body. There is a body, and I momentarily direct my focus deliberately to the commotion and bustle that is taking place below, where there are individuals rushing around in states of intense upheaval. I have no emotional tie to anyone, even the other passengers in the car, and I don't even bother to worry how severely they were hurt. I am aware that one possibility is to just keep going and not look back.
When I concentrate on the issue of whether or not I should go back, I disengage from what I can now call natural wholeness or sky-like essence. This is the point at which my thinking begins to take the shape of language. At this point, I start to narrow, specify, and limit my focus to what can be understood within the context of normal circumstances. It is as if I already understand on a level that calls for no discourse, so I don't need to go through the process of gaining an explanation. There is no value judgment or feeling of purpose, and I am not really sure why I chose to return. This takes place around at the same time as they were loading me into the ambulance. After what seems like an eternity, I finally start to reacquaint myself with my body, and a few hours later, I am once more engaging with it. It wasn't until many years later, after all of that foolishness, that I was finally able to compose myself well enough to start making sense of it all.